I've had a very troubling night. Yesterday I read the news about the terrible crimes of the police, the aristocracy, the wealthy, the privileged, against a poor couple, hounding them for years, stealing 4 babies from them, forcing them to escape into a difficult situation in cold, poor accommodation, difficult situation, and having just given birth to a baby, having to deliver it themselves for fear of the authorities, living in fear of being terrorised by the police, by the social services, by the rich parents who don't give a damn for them as a couple. This couple, slandered by the media for something a child did 30 years ago. A child of 14 who may well have been a victim of some other miscarriage of justice. Who knows? They were a good couple, a couple that loved each other, and society tore them apart, ripped their children away from them, and eventually ended up charging them with the murder of their own child, who just died because of the terrible crimes committed against them by the authorities. Those people who are supposedly looking after everybody. Yet it's not their job to look after people. That's the trouble. Because these people, it should be the church that looks after the poor, the sick, the needy and the oppressed. And that should be the police, should be part of the church. The police and the social services should be part of the church. And to be part of the church, you have to have no money. You have to have given everything away and dedicated your life to serving God and the benefit of the community. And those are the only people who should be allowed in positions of power and authority over ordinary poor people. This couple was running for their lives. They loved each other. They supported each other. And all they got was slander about this person's past from when they were 14-year-old boy accused of rape by a solo mother of 30 with 2 children in the house. Apparently he kept her there for 4.5 hours while he had oral sex with her. Oh yeah. It sounds more to me like child abuse, but I don't know. See, we don't know what happened. And this was a black guy, a young black child. Who knows? Who knows what went on at this time? The fear that a small child can have, I don't know. Yet that 14-year-old child is now a 35-year-old man who's spent 20 odd years in prison. Now there's nothing said about him since they say he committed this offence. They convicted him of it. They put him in jail. There's no talk about anything that he's done since then. So he mustn't have done anything, otherwise they would have had something to say. And so you just don't know. We can't just trust. We cannot trust the justice system. And so I'm reminded of my own experiences as a couple, as a divine couple, because there are certain steps on the journey to the divine couple that we all have to go through. And this strikes me as a typical example of one of those divine couplings. And it's very, very unsafe to become a divine couple in modern society. It's very unsafe to have children and be poor in modern society. It's very easy to become a victim of the social welfare services a victim of the police, a victim of the agenda of the rich and the aristocracy, quote, quote, because they're not real aristocracy. If you heard the statement made, recording the voice of the parent of this young woman, asking to get his daughter back, who couldn't stand him, didn't want to have anything to do with him, yeah? And his voice is just pure evil. You can just hear it. There's no compassion, there's no nothing for his daughter. It's just, come home please, you know, it's all fake. It's just fake, the whole thing. It's a very difficult subject, very difficult, because every report you read is just spin, it's just spun, yeah? And you have to go dig out, try and dig up some information, what actually happened. And this woman defended her partner and defended everything that they did and called out the social services for what they were. But it's very difficult to find her side of the story. Why can't we have a video, an hour documentary of her telling her story and him telling their story, their life story about what happened to them? Why can't we hear that? Why can't we hear their side of the story? Why can't the public judge? Why can't they? And it's not even been allowed to be reported on. It took them like half a year to process this through the courts. And apparently, I just heard there's a retrial. They must have thought, well, we can't get them on the first trial, we'll have to get them on the second trial or something. I don't know what's going on, but they were determined to deal with this because it's embarrassment for the social services. It's just an embarrassment for the government. Yeah, and so they've got the BBC just spinning this, all the media just spinning it out of control. Just some kind of horrific, oh my God, look at this, how terrible this is. Look at this black guy, this white girl, you know, we've got all this Pakistani grooming gangs. It's the exact opposite of a Pakistani grooming gang, actually. It's a divine couple. Now I'm going to take 5 and then let's have a look at this coupleship thing. It's dangerous. The world is a dangerous place. And I don't know, I'm just saying off the top of my head what occurs to me about this couple. I don't know what the true story is, so we don't know. But I would love to hear their story told in an hour-and-a-half documentary of exactly what happened to them at the hands of the justice system, the injustice of it. I'll take 5. Now, as a man, to become a divine couple, you first have to enter the pathway, and that means to give all of your wealth away, and become a holy man, you know, and a mendicant, yeah, on the pathway, living freely on the pathway, without money. And you have to do that for some years before you're put together with your divine partner. You have to be a high-level initiate, living the life. And you'll find yourself sleeping in a graveyard. It's funny this. Because you have to go through the Shiva Pavrati, it's like this, a divine couple, the Shiva Pavrati initiation. Okay, because you have to have nothing, you have to offer nothing, you have to have nothing to offer the lady but wisdom. That's all, just wisdom. You have to be the highest level initiate on the individual journey, the highest, okay. And you'll find yourself in a graveyard when your Pavrati finds you, okay. And finally takes you home to her place. Yeah. Now she has to be a holy lady. You are the father of the universe. So you can say, I I and the Father are one. I and the Father are one. You can say that. Okay. You have to be able to be that before you can meet her, because she is the mother of the universe. And she has to have been through some study program that ladies go through. It's different to men. Generally they go through it in a group and they study the teachings of the masters, the teachings of, in my case, my lady studied with the Anthroposophical Society. Now, this case I told you about, she was also in some study, some spiritual group of study. They said it was a cult, which they would have said that all organisations are cults. It's only if it's freely, naturally organised, it's not a cult. And they would say, that's a cult. Yeah. So it's going to be a cult that you're going to be part of, the lady. Yeah. She has to be prepared to become the mother of the universe. Yeah. And she's absolute compassion, love, compassion. And her test is that will she desire only the man of wisdom, Superman is, the man of wisdom, or will she be attracted to wealth and take some superior man who's got everything, got a good job, got wealth, that he'll come along as her test, but she'll have to choose between the man of wisdom and the man of wealth. She'll be faced with that choice. As Pavarati, that's her initiation. And her family will not approve, her mother and father will not approve. She'll have to go through that, and she'll have to be prepared to ignore them completely and say, I'm going to have him anyway, yeah, because he is destined to be my partner. That's what it's all about. Now, before you become Shiva on the pathway, you have to have been arrested years ago and spent time in jail, imprisoned, and so on. That's part of the course, yeah, because you need to know about the justice system, because you don't want to be getting involved with that, with your lady. You can see the danger of that. And so, this young man, this African man, gentleman, who was locked up in prison for 20 odd years in America, and then just released out of prison and immediately deported back to England, that he never spent hardly any time in his life in. You can see that he was cast out on the road just like a mendicant, okay, like a holy man. And he'd been in a cell living as a mendicant for 20 years, probably reading the Bible and whatever else he could get his hands on, studying the writings of the ancient wisdom. Probably. I'm just guessing this, but it's likely, because she was also interested in that stuff. He must have been interested in that stuff. There was a Bible in their possession in the car, I believe, when they found it, and so so my theory is that they were a divine couple, and they'd been through this initiation where she must have met him and gone through the Pavarati initiation, where he was just a wise man with nothing, no money, no material. He just probably sleeping in a graveyard, in the churchyard, yeah, because that's the safest place to take yourself to if you're going to sleep. Take your sleeping bag into the churchyard where the graveyard is, and sleep there at night. I spent a lot of time sleeping in graveyards, yeah, before becoming a divine couple. And so he was probably doing the same, and she would have met him, and they would have been, it would have been their destiny to meet and become a divine couple, go through their initiation, and then start the journey to the divine couple. Now, the difference between him and me was that I was an older man at the time, and so I was over 50 years old. And so going back, probably late 50s by the time I met Elizabeth. And so at that age, you can't have children anymore. It's after it's called the menopause. And so there were no children to worry about in our relationship. Yet the danger for this younger couple is that they're still at a younger age and there's going to be children, and probably lots of them, because as a part of the natural order, you're not allowed to use contraceptives. You're supposed to just make love and do what is natural to you, and they would make a lot of babies. Yeah. And apparently she had some money, and so typically that's what happens, is the man is looked after by the lady. That's how nature organises. So the lady's got a bit of money, the man's got nothing. But this is not, the aristocracy hate this. So the aristocracy say, oh my God, she's been taken over by this black man who committed rape apparently, and all these stories about him. It's kind of like, we have to save her from hell, but really she's in heaven. She's in the divine couple with a divine partner, and these people lost in the world. The most dangerous thing, if this happens to you, is your family. Your family is the most dangerous thing. That your friends and family, yeah, they're the ones that they're dangerous if they're not enlightened, yeah, which they won't be, of course, because you have to go on the journey to be enlightened. And so you find yourself in the world with your divine partner. You've gone through all these tests, and now you're having babies, yeah. And this is so dangerous, so dangerous with the social services. Now, I came across the story of this couple yesterday. It just broke the news yesterday in the UK. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be talked about probably big time. I hope it will be talked about big time. And the press has been muzzled on it because they've got stupid laws in Britain that you can't report on trials that are ongoing. So when it actually happened, it wasn't in the news. It's terrible, It should be straight away, oh, this has happened, so we can all get our opinions sorted out, our understanding of what's going on here, I said you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'd done a bit of research on it yesterday, and my colleague, who is learning to play bass guitar together with me, he sort of wanted to come over. So he came over, and we sat down before we had a bit of a practice, and then we sat down afterwards, and I said to him, I've been looking at this case, and I said, it's terrible what the social welfare has done to families. The family, how dangerous it is to be a couple these days. And then he said, absolutely. And then he recounted what happened to him with his children, how he had to go through all these terrible meetings and controlled environment, and how they basically took his children away from him, yeah, when he split up with his partner, yeah. And the terrible experiences that he had at the hands of the social system. And yeah, I thought, yeah, it's a common problem. It's a common thing that happens to people in our time. Yeah, it's one of the biggest issues of our time. And these people are just interested in money. They don't have any heart and soul. They're not called by nature to look after the poor, the sick, the needy, and the oppressed. They just got the job that they do, and they've been trained in all this quote quote safeguarding, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. These people are absolutely ridiculous. Nobody needs safeguarding. We live in a safe world, yeah? And all this safeguard, it's just fear wandering the earth, disguised as protection. It's a protection racket. And so we have all this crazy stuff going on in the world, and we're suffering the consequences of it. And I suppose it's like when the first Christians appeared, they had to suffer the consequences of being born into the Roman world, yeah, and the persecutions of the early Christians, the people who said, we're only going to be in nature, forget all your nonsense, all your fake society. And the same thing happened in the 1960s. Yeah, I was a child in the 1960s, and we had to break free from society. And there was a lot of this problem was going on in the 1960s. The farm community was one of the only places that was like natural order. It was like a natural church. Yeah, the people just called to be there, and there was a lot of midwives there living on the farm. They trained themselves up to be midwives, to bring babies and look after babies in the world. And so a lot of young women who found themselves pregnant in the 1960s, because of the dangers of going into the system and how they'd take your baby away from you, either they'd get an abortion for you or they'd just steal your baby and adopt it out or something like that. That's what they used to do in the 60s. They were so frightened of this, the young people, that they went to the farm and they had their baby and then they lived on the farm and brought the baby up on the farm. That was part of what they did. They found an alternative way of creating a natural society within the greater extent of the fake fallen greed cult. Yeah? So they were able to be outside it. Now, you can't do that unless there's a group of you living together on like the farm. Here, living in our little houses here, we're not organised. Now, we can't organise, it has to be natural organisation, and it's very difficult to organise naturally in this scenario here, yeah, where you're all living in separate little houses that are all, they're not interconnected in the nature. Normally in a community what happens is you have your own little round houses and they're all kind of, you're sleeping in a bed, you open the door, the outdoors is the indoors, your neighbours walking outside there, the animals are all there. You know, you get up and you're with your community. Community can naturally organise in that way, but if you have everybody in cell blocks, in all separate houses with all the doors closed and locked and everything, people only meet when they go shopping, and then if they stop and talk to each other, they're not used to doing that, so some of them don't, you know, they just walk past you. So we're out of a natural order, and it's very difficult to come back into it, actually in a place that's been built, bricks and mortar, of the old world, the fallen greed cult. Yeah? So somehow, to be able to get anywhere on this problem, we need to be back on the farm, the same as the farm communities. And I encourage you to watch the video about the farm community. There's also a download link for a very important book that is a document about how the farm worked and organised. It's necessary for that to come back into the world. They set the pattern for that in the 1960s and 70s. So it's necessary that that pattern be built upon and recreated everywhere, you know, in Britain, in America, all over the world. It's necessary that that pattern be reintroduced. So that's our way forward. And you can see also that the farmers are not very happy. The farmers are part of the way forward. So somehow the church, the church which is the natural order of poets, bards and druids, needs to come together with the farming community somehow and be able to establish community living, to move from here, to move onto the farm and build our little houses on the farm. And to hell with the building codes, you know, we'll live in tents, yeah? in yurts. And we have to be able to be prepared to stand in our group power, in that situation. And that's the only way we can stand and protect our way of life in the natural order, is if we do it together. That's the only way. And we can't plan it, we can't organise it. It's just got to organise naturally. It's just got to come together naturally. To organise it is a big mistake, And what we're learning is all organisations are false. We have to trust Krishnamurti on this one, that you cannot organise anything. And he paid for his he organised his writings in the end into the form of a company, a business, and he ended up in court over it. So he had to learn the lesson also, the small amount of organising he did. You can't do it. You have to just let nature organise it. I'll take 5. Now, if what happened to this couple happened to you in ancient Greece, if the social welfare and the police were chasing you, you would be in a city-state, right? The city-state was after you, Then you could go to the sacred grove. Now the sacred grove was outside of the city, and there were like priestesses there who looked after nature. It's normally a place of water where there was water, and it was absolutely sacred. There's no crime could be committed there. It was, if you went to the sacred grove, you couldn't be touched. Couldn't be touched by anybody. It was a divine, sacred place. And so, if this couple had been living in ancient Greece, they could have run to the sacred grove, and there would be a place, there would be somebody there who would be able to help them look after their little baby that was coming, When you think about it, it's a bit like the Jesus story. That was like maybe the baby Jesus that was about to be born, And here they are, they're on the run from Herod. She's pregnant, and Herod, the police and the social welfare, they're after them, Now, if they'd been in the 9th century, or the 10th century, possibly the 11th century, maybe part of the 12th century, probably not. It was all over in the 12th century. They would be able to go to the abbey. The abbey was the equivalent of the sacred grove, and it was a bit more developed. It was more like a town, the abbey, and it had craftspeople and holy people all living in natural order. It was like the farm, And they could go there, and the people there would look after them, And that also couldn't be touched. They couldn't be touched by those people living in the world. That's our system, the Western system. But now, you can't go near the church, what's called the church. They'll just dob you into the social welfare, or they'll dob you in. The first thing they do is call the police on you. So there's nowhere to go. And so this couple, she was heavily pregnant, and they're running for their life to save their baby. And so, where can you go? There's only a cold, wet field, and a tent in the middle of winter. That's it, really. And so that's where they ended up, in the middle of winter. And Jesus said, alas, if you're running away like this in the middle of winter, if your journey is in the middle of winter, woe be to you. And it's true, I made my journey, my run, one of them, I've done many runs, but one of them I made on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, I was thrown out of the Berlin airport station, railway station and airport. I was thrown out into the snow. I had to somehow find, and it was snowing, actually snowing, and it was this deep on the ground. And I had to somehow find a way to survive Christmas Eve and Christmas morning, the coldest part of the night. I had to find a way to survive that. Yeah. So I know what it's like to be on the run. I wasn't being chased by anybody like these people, but I was chased out. I said, how dare you throw me out into that out there on Christmas Eve? So how dare you? That was their test, because they, you know, I said, you can imagine or you know yourself. So, and we should feel sorry for this couple that had to suffer the death of this baby. And I doubt if that's what's going on. I haven't heard what's going on, what's going to happen to this couple. Maybe they haven't been sentenced yet, I don't know. They've been found guilty of all sorts of charges. And we should just be feeling sorry for them, yeah? They lost a baby under difficult circumstances. Our heart should go out to them. We should encourage them to have another one, yeah? The baby's dead, didn't live long, doesn't matter, yeah? Doesn't matter. They did the best they could. You can't hold anybody responsible for that. If you want to hold anybody responsible, you have to hold the father that put the private security onto them and got the police going after them and did all this stuff, yeah? And the social services and all that. You have to blame them if you're going to blame anybody. You can't blame the poor couple who was just trying to survive the birth of a baby. Yeah. Now, my opinion on this will probably be, I'll probably be the sole voice in the world about this. And so be it, if that's the way it has to be. I have to set an example, yeah. This wouldn't have happened in my church, you understand? If they'd have come knocking on my door, if they'd have come knocking on this door here, I would have let them in. They could have slept on the floor, I would have given them something warm. They could have had their baby, yeah? I would have dobbed them into the social welfare and the police. I would have hidden them here, yeah? If anybody come and say, you dare go through here, this is a holy place, this is a sacred place. It's not in the world, and it doesn't obey the rules of the world. The law in I hate using this word, the church, but it is a word for it. The law in the church is the complete opposite of the law in the world. The complete opposite. Yeah. It's divine. And there's no telling anybody what to do in the church. That's all done in the world. And there's no rules in the church that people need to follow. Everybody's under divine nature. The only thing is that if you start acting like you're in the world, then you'll go back to the world. It's that simple, yeah? You won't be allowed to stay in the church. God will not allow it. If you go into the forest and you find a place in divine nature and you tidy it up and you make it good, and it's God that chose it together with you, it wasn't just something you had, some idea you had in your mind, it's just like you're led to this place. You can do what you like there as long as you don't mess it up. God will protect you. Nobody will come find you. Unless your time is up and you need to go somewhere else. It's only if you mess it up. If you mess it up, if you start messing up nature, within 5 minutes the police will come and they'll throw you out of there, the forestry people, whatever, they'll throw you out. If you behave yourself and just look after nature, there'll be no problem at all. There are so many lessons that mankind needs to learn. And the church is very small in the world, very small. A few walls and that's it, yeah. All little pieces separated one from the other. And it's only by making the farm that the church can grow into reality. And it can't be those old church buildings, that's all nonsense, all that old stuff. As soon as you get involved in that, it's just organisational hell. It has to be without organisation, it has to be new. You can't put new wine into old bottles, it just doesn't work, yeah. So it's all got to be new. And somehow the farm has to come, the first farm. And then the next one, and the next one, and the thousands upon thousands of farms that man uses to build the new kingdom. Thy will be done, thy kingdom come. Thanks for watching.